Hello, this is Steve with this week's Cambridge YouTube English video. We're doing some reading. I've made another great class. We're going to think about what you really need, the skills you need, how to pass the reading, all of those things, with an interesting topic that we are talking about in one of my classes at school this week. It's about technology. It's about our relationship with social media. You can see the idea there. We're going to do a reading about quitting social media based on a video by I don't remember who, Dr. Cal, good close personal friend of mine, obviously. But what I'm going to do in class is do the reading first, then watch the video, because the text is based on the first 5 minutes of the video. So it might be too easy if you watch the video first, but I would recommend watching the video, which is this one. I'm going to open it, and it's always interesting to see YouTube on other people's YouTube, isn't it? As last night's YouTube, not for me, for the baby. And we can see, there we go, Dr. Cal Newport, quitting social media, great little TED talk, one of those ones that makes you change how you think, maybe. First 5 minutes is going to be what we're using for this reading. So here's what you need to do. Thinking about what we're doing today, reading part 7, understanding the gist and ideas, and then some use of English to try and get some detailed understanding as well. But what is understanding? This is where we go a bit deeper in today's lesson. You don't really need to care about this, but I think you should, because this is, you feel like you know what you're doing in the exam, you feel like you really understand it, it helps. Is understanding just answering exam questions? Well, you have to understand the text to answer exam questions, but when you read for pleasure, there are no exam questions, and you still understand the text. So is understanding something else? Maybe we could say understanding is the idea of a clear and correct picture of what is happening in the text. I've mentioned this before on my channel, but sometimes when I read in French or Spanish, if it's a very difficult text or a badly written text, I have this idea that everything's a bit foggy and a bit unclear, and I'm not quite sure what's happening, like I'm seeing it through some kind of mist or fog. That's because I'm not understanding it, for my fault or the fault of the writer, maybe. Obviously not my fault, I'm perfect. But this idea of having a clear image of what's happening and being comfortable with it. So I think that's important. And then how do we get there? Well, I think the point here is it's about taking notes. It's about practice. If you can say what the text was about when you look away, because you've read it, you've understood it, you've written down key words on the text, which is helping you think, okay, that's my understanding of it. Putting it in your own words, having a dialogue with the text, with the writer, these kind of ideas, they all point towards understanding. So anyway, let's get into it. Let's see if we can understand the text, if we can have a clear and correct image of what's happening, if we can summarize it in our own words and give our opinion on it because we understood it. So here's your text, which will be in a text, paste bin text in the description, so it's a bit easier to look at because this is obviously too small and too wall of text. But it's C1 reading part 7. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Or B2 reading part 6, where you have to put the correct sentences or short paragraphs in the correct gap. And I've just taken it from the text. So it's about, as I've said before, connecting ideas together, understanding the ideas and how they're linked together. In terms of technique, go and watch my 2 or 3 videos for this part of the exam, which I'll try to remember to link. But I think the best technique is note down in your own words the key idea before and after each gap. And it can just be 2 or 3 words, like what have you understood is happening just before gap number 1 in 2 or 3 words, and after gap number 1 in 2 or 3 words. What's going on, what's happening in your own words as a summary. Then when you've done that for all the gaps, read the sentences that you're going to put in and try and think, okay, it said this and it said this. So what fits? What makes sense to go in between that gap? What are the reference words pointing at? What are the ideas pointing at? So go away and do it. Take 10-15 minutes and really try and do it properly. And then come back and we'll look at the answers. And we should have, for number 1, here come the answers. These are going to be 2 marks each. I've made 7 questions because I could fit 7 in. On the C2 exam, there are 7. So if you're practicing C2, get used to this if you want to reach that level. Anyway, number 1. He is talking about his experience with social media and when Facebook first arrived at his campus. So this is a time in his life, and the time is referring to F, that time, when he was in the dorm room at college. So this is another little clue: college, campus, dorm room. And at that time when Facebook arrived. He's referring back to this time and the story of how he started on social media. Number 2 sort of continues with this idea. He's saying how it looked dangerous, how everyone was hooked on it, and how he never signed up. Well, we can see that one of those is mentioning E. This seems a little bit dangerous, is referring to social media. And his objectivity is referring to the situation that he was in, having had his own problems with his .com business. So he's got a different perspective, the clarity, from the other students. Okay, so here's the main message. He's okay without social media. He's okay without social media. There we go, 3-word summary. And then after it, we have things he's doing fine. So which gap is related to things he's doing fine without social media? It's B. He still has friends. He still knows what's going on in the world. He's still okay. Number 4, he's actually better off. So now we're saying more successful, better without it. So that's going to be A, isn't it? Happier, more sustainability, reasons why he's better without social media is in terms of improvements. So number 5, now he says, the world is better with fewer people using social media. Wow. We're saying stop using social media. This is something a bit controversial. This is something that we might say is a big claim that he needs to back up. And when he means back it up, when he says that, obviously he means support it. So now he's going to take the 3 common objections and then diffuse the hype, as in say it's not such a big deal. So it also fits in terms of backing it up, and this is how he's going to support this claim. So the first objection is that you need social media to function in the 21st century. Rejecting it is Luddism. This is an old word that means destroying factories and things when people didn't want factories. This is a crazy thing to do. We're saying that you can't do something so crazy, it's going to be C, isn't it? People say, I can't do that, I can't take such a big stance. Stance meaning position, like a social position. I can't say, I'm going to give up social media, I'm going to ride to work on a horse. It's crazy. That's the point of C, the objection. Carl says this is nonsense. Okay. In fact, it's just entertainment. Social media is just entertainment. It's not a big deal to say that you don't use it. It's like saying, I don't, read romance books. I only read science fiction books. No one would care if you said that. He's saying it's not a big deal. So you can say, this is going to be H, isn't it? It's not controversial. It's not a big deal. H. And D was a distraction. I just made that up. It shouldn't fit any of them unless I've done it badly. So there we go. You got 2 marks for each of those. Hopefully a bit of detailed reading that we've done, understanding this text. Let's continue the text and think about some use of English from it. So the next paragraph in the text, I have taken the paragraph and I've extracted, like I always do, what I consider very useful bits of knowledge for B2 and C1. And I've done it in a slightly different way. I've mixed up use of English part 1, part 2, and part 3. Always in order. We can see 1, 2, 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, is the same. Part 1, part 2, part 3. For part 1, choose the best word. For part 2, think of the best word without any options, a grammatical word. And for part 3, take the word and transform it so it fits the gap. You can do that from 1 to 9. Pause the video, try your best. These are all useful everyday bits of English that could be on a Cambridge exam, like I always say for these activities we're doing. And number 1 is going to be, you look closer at something. That's the one that fits best. For number 2, again, typical Cambridge expression, really used by people in a TED Talk. If you keep consuming English media and paying attention, actively consuming, like I'm doing in these videos, you will learn all the expressions for a B2 and C1 exam. This one is not only, but also, or not just, but also. Fantastic. Number 3, the people are attention engineers because they are trying to work with your attention and, capture your attention. What do? They borrow principles from Las Vegas and they try to make these products as addictive as possible. All this makes sense, I think, from the point of view of the context of the text and the word formation and all these things. Number 7, desired is the word we're going to use because that's the only one that really fits as an adjective. The other ones don't really work as adjectives there. You use it in an obsessive fashion. You do something in a certain way, in a good way, in a bad way, in a good fashion, in an obsessive fashion, because that maximizes, with the S obviously at the end because it's third person singular, that maximizes the profit. The first S can be an S or a Z if you're American. But again, common C1 word that you see a lot, and it's really used in English. So you've got a mark out of 9 there for some B2 with some C1 level questions. This I've seen on the C1 exam, for example, and 8 you'd also see on the C1 exam. And let's do the same thing again, and this is the end of the video. Same thing again, 9 more questions because I'm giving you excellent value if we look at question 18. Pause the video, do the same thing again, use of English part 1, part 2, part 3. And here come the answers. Number 10 is going to be suggest. You suggest that someone does something, or suggest doing something. We know how to use suggest because it's a common Cambridge verb. Number 11, that's a tough one, but it goes as follows or like follows. Both are possible because we're saying it is like the following argument. It goes as follows. The 21st century economy, we refer to the economy, the situation, the economic situation of the country is the economy. Economics is the subject that you study. And number 13, you have a social media brand like Focus on Cambridge, my well-maintained brand, obviously. And number 14, this is a good one, isn't it? Real English that you learn that then appears on the exam. People won't know who I am, relative pronoun for a person. At number 15, I will effectively disappear from the economy. But this is nonsense because his book, or this is a good C1 verb, draws on different strands of evidence. To draw on evidence or to draw on something means to take information from it. Like you're pulling the information out, draw with this meaning of pull, to take the information from it. Number 17, what the market values, again another relative pronoun, meaning the thing that the market values, is the ability to produce things that are rare and are adjective from value, of course, valuable. So the point here is that you don't need social media. If you have a good product, the market will make sure that your product sells anyway. Hope we understand that point. Oh, I nearly made it through the whole video without coughing. Obviously, it's time to get colds here in Europe. Right, that's it. Lots of reading, lots of use English. Hope that was useful. Stay tuned. See you next week. Subscribe. Goodbye.